Did he or did he not sell his soul to the devil to get his musical talents? Let's find out. Oh, and by the way, it's not me saying that he is America's first rock star. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame gave him that title. So don't fight me, go fight them. Everything we know about Robert Johnson is like speculation. We don't even know when he was born because he doesn't have a birth certificate. But we believe that he was born in May 1911 in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. Yes, I'm talking about another native Mississippian. We also know that he spent his early years in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was educated, and he learned about reading, writing, science, as well as music. He got a very extensive musical education in Memphis. And this, by the way, would have set him apart from his peers because most people at this time didn't have like a formal education in music. Robert's family life was kind of rough. He was one of 10 children. His mother had been married multiple times. It seemed like every time she married a different man, it was for a different benefit, to get more land or to get money, and they moved around quite a bit. Robert also did not know who his biological father was, and that's something that sort of played a theme in the rest of his life of trying to find a connection to his biological father. When he was 18 years old, he met Virginia Travis. She was 16 years old. They were very much in love, and they got married. They were super young. Now, she was incredibly religious, and he was actually going to give up some of his music career to focus on a more religious life. But unfortunately, Virginia died in childbirth. People say that this very traumatic early experience is what led him to dedicating his life to singing the devil's music, which in this time period would have been blues music. Now, it's the 1930s, okay? This is like Depression era Mississippi at this point. People did not have a whole lot of money. He would perform at like juke joints and different things like that in local communities, but he didn't make a whole lot of money. Now, one important thing to note is that he was known to be a pretty bad guitarist at this point in time. He was known to play the harmonica very well. He could sing, but apparently his guitar skills were terrible. Robert had been living in the Robinsonville, Mississippi area, and he one day just up and left. He went closer to the Hazelhurst, Mississippi area. Some say he went to look for his father and find his father's relatives, but he ended up coming across this man. This is Ike Zimmerman. He was a very well-known guitarist in the area who had an affinity for practicing the guitar in cemeteries. And it is said that he taught Robert how to play the guitar. So the legend goes that Robert was instructed to take his guitar at midnight to the crossroads, which would have been near Dockery Plantation. It is there that he met the devil, who took his guitar, tuned it, played a few songs, handed it back to him, and all of a sudden he had this extraordinary talent. Follow for part 2. It is part 2. We are talking about America's first rock star, Robert Johnson. In 1931, Robert returned back to the Robinsonville, Mississippi area, and all of a sudden he knew how to play the guitar very well. And people were like, huh? People couldn't figure out how he learned how to play the guitar in such a short period of time. They also couldn't figure out where he had been. Robert had very long, thin fingers, like you can see in this picture. Look how thin and like long his fingers were. And this gave him the ability to play the guitar in the fashion that he did. One of the documentaries that I watched about him recently said that he played the guitar in the way that somebody would play the piano. Like he had a way of sliding his fingers up against the chords and plucking on the strings in a certain way that was very, very difficult to mimic. Like nobody else could play like this. From 1932 to 1938, Robert became a traveling musician. He traveled all throughout the South and even made it as far north as Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, even Canada. He would typically arrive in a city, play on the street corner, and he had this talent of being able to hear a song one time and then be able to perfectly reproduce it by playing the guitar. He became very popular, and not just popular with audiences, but very popular with the ladies. As you can see, he's very handsome, and he was known to have a woman in pretty much every city that he went to. This was despite the fact that he had remarried and had a child back in Mississippi. He also tended to gravitate towards older women who had money so they could sort of finance his traveling musician career while he went around and traveled and played music and hung out with other women. In 1936 and 1937, Robert actually recorded his music, so we can actually listen to what his voice sounded like and what his guitar playing sounded like.
Hey guys, so when I originally had this posted to TikTok, I did have a snippet of him singing, but YouTube does not play taking other people's music. So you're going to have to go to the Googles and go Google Crossroad Blues so you can hear his voice. And then after you look it up, you guys got to come back here and tell me what you thought about his singing voice. It's really interesting.
It is truly a blessing that we have the number of recordings we have from him. I think there's about 29 of them. Robert died a little over a year after he made his last recording. He was 27 years old, and a lot of people actually say that he was the originator of the very unlucky 27 Club. You know, the club of celebrities who died untimely deaths at the age of 27. Robert's death certificate does not list a cause of death, and his death wasn't even reported publicly, but there is a legend on how he may have died. Robert was a pretty big drinker. He was known to drink a lot of whiskey, and as the legend has it, he was very flirtatious with a man's wife there in Greenwood, Mississippi, and this man poisoned his bottle of whiskey, and apparently that is the legend on how his death was caused. Go on YouTube and look up his music. It is incredible.